Hey friend, do you love the smell of books? Maybe you absolutely delight in the sound of a pen gliding across a page as you write. Hi, my name is Sara Rodriguez, and I am a Jesus follower, a writer, entrepreneur, and lover of all things boho and books. In this podcast, I want to take you on a journey of discovering yourself, discovering God and your passions, and how to make your life beautiful and so full that it overflows into the lives of others. And over here, we are not about compartmentalizing life. Oh no. Over here, we talk about holistically taking your life and presenting it as a place where others can be blessed just by knowing you. Are you excited? I am. So snag your favorite mug of tea or a pen and paper and let's jump in. Because you're listening to Her Reading Life podcast. Hello, friends. It's so lovely to chat with you all again. Summer is waning away, and as sad as I am to see it end, accompanied by all the nostalgic feels I get at the end of the season, I'm also a little bit excited. The end of the season always signals the beginning of a new one. We'll all miss the lovely trips to the beach, the buoyant spirit everyone seems to exude, the cries of, "It's summer!" from kids playing in the pool. Also, the huge scoopfuls of ice cream I've been indulging in far too much lately. Don't lie, I know I'm not the only one. And I think it's so important that we enjoy each season when it comes. Life is like that, you know. When you're a child, we spend so much time wanting to grow up. And in the sweetest way, maybe it's a good thing. We spend our days nursing teddy bears and costume strubs and fighting fires with backwards helmets, with the couch doubling as our fire truck. It gives us something to hope for, to look forward to. When you're an adult, you end up looking back and wanting to go back to when you were a kid. Not just because life was a lot simpler, but also because it's such a beautiful, short, fragile season of life. It won't ever come back. So now that I'm older and hopefully wiser, I'm trying to enjoy each moment and capture them in my mind like fireflies in a jar. I'm always keeping goals and looking ahead because that's what gives you life and hope, similar to when you were young and looked forward to growing up. But I'm also trying to enjoy the little moments and loving the season I'm in, even if it's a transition period. You know, transitions are a wonderful time to look back and look ahead. In fact, this is something I think I'd like to incorporate in my year. God made each season beautiful in its time, as it says in Ecclesiastes. And I think that rhythm of steady change is God's reminder to look back and look ahead. It's so interesting that God actually tells his people to keep this practice regularly. He keeps telling his people to remember what he did for them and tells them to remind this to their children, the next generation, as they prepare to do things and prepare for new seasons. Every time God says he is about to do something new, he always points to the past and urges his people to remember his faithfulness and, armed with that knowledge, head with confidence and faith into the future. The beautiful thing is that amid change, one constant remains: God. He promises to be with us in the change and yet never change who he is himself. You know, there's this book called At the Back of the North Wind by George MacDonald, a favorite author of C.S. Lewis's, actually. And in this book, there's a character who is the personification of the North Wind. She presents a sort of picture of God in the novel and teaches the little boy who plays the role of the protagonist how to face the inevitable question of evil and even death and change. One of my favorite quotes from this novel comes early in the book when North Wind is about to take him flying on her back. She says, "If you see me with my face all black, don't be frightened. If you see me flapping wings like a bat's as big as the whole sky, don't be frightened. If I change into a serpent or a tiger, you must not let go your hold of me, for my hand will never change in yours if you keep a good hold. If you keep a hold, you will know who I am all the time, even when you look at me and can't see me the least like the north wind." There might be seasons where God doesn't look like we expect him to, or our circumstances seem to be as unsettled as a storm, but as long as we hold on to God, we have a constant to comfort our hearts. I honestly feel like change is both terrifyingly beautiful and beautifully terrible. There's something exhilarating about a new season and alluring about the unknown that just beckons us to come a little closer. It's exciting. It's like Christmas morning and you don't know what your presents are, or Winnie the Pooh heading off for an expedition on the North Pole. Quite literally, it turns out to be a pole with Christopher Robin. And yet, that very unknown and being forced to leave the past behind can sometimes be scary, even painful. And yet, in that terrifying uncertainty, we find beauty in knowing that we can clutch God's hand as hard as we want and it won't break, ever. We can trust that with our hand in His, every season is beautiful in its time. Every turning page is an opportunity to remember that He held our hand through the last season, and He'll do it again in the next. Beautiful memories were made in the last season, and still are more to come. But how do we actually practice this and pull theory into practice? Because I'm afraid there isn't much use to thinking all this and never doing anything about it, is there? So here are some thoughts on how to weave this into life as we enter a new season. If you have any other ideas, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thought number 1, take a seasonal break and look back. For so many months, I've had a single word reverberating in my brain: rest. We are so often caught in the constant need to look for the next thing nowadays, and so fond of all things 24/7 that we forget God gave us a Sabbath day as a gift for us, a day of rest. When we rest, we allow the chortling motor of our mind to quiet down enough to hear God. We allow our mental smog to thin just enough to see life a little more clearly. Something I plan on doing is setting aside a pre-planned break, probably a week or so, at the end of this season. I'll probably take a break from Instagram and maybe take it easy with work. And I'm going to take some time to think and remember all the beautiful things I was able to accomplish this summer. The goals I met, the memories I made, the people I shared time with, the prayers God answered, the sermons I heard, the journal entries I wrote, the music I enjoyed, the God sightings I witnessed. I want to bask in the glory of it all and allow my heart to overflow with gratitude towards my King. Because so often, I take these little moments for granted, the little joys that overwhelm my heart when I think about them all together. I want to remember and create a sanctuary and a ritual for myself to remember. Every time God had His children celebrate a feast, somewhere He would always have them remember His goodness, His faithfulness, and His love. So that week, I hope to find a new and creative way to remember. Maybe I'll make a photograph album, maybe I'll journal memories, maybe I'll watercolor and stick them into a notebook, maybe I'll listen to my favorite songs of the last season, or enjoy some days walking outside and soaking in the last glories of summer. The idea is to soak your soul with good and beautiful things to remind you how good God has been to you this season. And even if this season was a tough one for you, remember the little blessings you were able to enjoy. Even if it was the purple sunset outside your window every night for the last season, there is always something to be grateful for. Because this allows you to live each season as if it were your last, and celebrate the miracle of each season. I love this quote from Albert Einstein, who so perfectly captured this sentiment. There are only 2 ways, he said, to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle. I think David had this attitude when he wrote his Psalms. They express a depth of feeling that make my own feelings toward God and His creation apathetic and pale in comparison with His colors. It was what allowed him to see the Lord's hand in every ripple of water and every blade of grass. My goal is to live the rest of my life with that kind of awe and gratitude as a result of my little seasonal break. Hey there, listener. Are you enjoying this episode? I truly hope so. Now that you've made it this far, I'm guessing you probably like reading. A lot. And you're in luck because I do too. In fact, I love reading so much that there are very few times during the day where I don't have my head stuck in a book or listening to audiobooks. But let's be honest, sometimes we don't have the time to prepare that idyllic reading moment with a cup of coffee or a mason jar with chilled iced tea. Sometimes you just have to read on the go. I'd love to share with you my absolute favorite reading apps that I've honestly fallen in love with over the years. I can honestly say that these apps have radically transformed my reading life and enabled me to discover books that I would never otherwise have stumbled upon or had the opportunity to read. And the best part, you can get this list for free right now if you wish to. All you have to do is head over to your favorite browser and type bio.site/Shira J. Rodriguez. That's bio.site/Shira J. Rodriguez. Or you can click on the link in the show notes below to access this completely free resource. I can't wait to hear your thoughts and find out which one of these apps becomes your favorite. Before we jump back into this episode, I wanted to tell you about a secret project I'm working on, and I think this might be right up your alley. You see, for years, I looked for a writing and reading community of young women who delighted in exploring ideas, discovering books together, and worked together to compose literary masterpieces and enduring friendships. Does this sound a little like a feminine inklings club? Okay, yeah, maybe it does a little bit. But recently, however, I've been beyond blessed to find other young women who yearned for the same kind of connections I did. And if you're someone whose heart is just burning right now, listening to me talk and getting all excited, I have amazing news for you. I'm working on a community-based project that I'm so excited to give more details about. If you're interested in learning more and joining, hop onto my waiting list by heading over to bio.site/Shira J. Rodriguez. That's bio.site/Shira J. Rodriguez. I so hope to see you there, friend. And now, let's jump back to the episode. Thought number 2, look ahead and plan during your break. Remembering is wonderful. It sets your heart in the right place. But if it doesn't change the way we go about life in the here and now and our plans for the future, we might not come out any different than we came in. So although I'm going to make celebrating the passing season a priority, I'm also going to celebrate the coming season by planning for the next one, which happens to be one of my favorite seasons of the year. Planning and setting goals is so important. Without goals, we don't move along in life. We have no way to measure how we grew or changed. In fact, there isn't much incentive to change or grow if we don't have any. So, after taking some time to remember and rest, I'm going to let my imagination run away with visions and ideas for the next season and the wonderful things I want to accomplish. My style of planning is not neat and organized, probably, but it's definitely not dry. It's more like dreaming, where I get to bask in my deepest desires and spend time in prayer, brainstorming with God, staring out the window, taking walks, and mapping out my ideas with my dad. It's where I stir up the embers of my mind to create new and exciting things to look forward to. I allow myself to create images of the person I want to become, and ask the Lord to establish the work of my hands and work with me and lead me as I follow these desires that He has put in my heart. Having a seasonal break also gives me a milestone, a goal for myself, for things I want to accomplish, and a reward that I can set at that time for accomplishing it. I think it's so essential to have this looking forward, looking back moment in the year. And I think making it a seasonal thing really helps us keep it more present, as opposed to the crazy rush of New Year's resolutions right after Christmas. Thought number 3, invest time in prayer. There is little within the categories of remembering and planning that doesn't end up turning into a prayer. See, when I remember the Lord's extraordinary goodness to me in the last months, I inevitably start crying because I realize how much I took for granted and how faithful God has been. How I never really lacked any good thing, as it says in Psalms. How He filled my cup to overflowing, even in the presence of difficult times. Prayer is the key to living life with joy and peace. When we surrender our sundry issues to Christ and stop stressing over them, He gives us rest, and contentment. We're not reproached by the fact that we didn't do something in the last season. We embrace it as a goal for the next. We're not worried about our plans for the future. We ask God to establish the work of our hands. It was never our life in the first place. Think of it. You didn't choose to come into this world, and none of us knows when our expiration date is. We don't control what family we came into or what color hair we had or the color of our skin. God gave us life. Now, this isn't to say we have no control over life. Not at all. On the contrary, God entrusted our time on earth to us to steward wisely, like a man who goes on vacation and leaves the keys to a house sitter. We are the house sitters of our life, so to speak. Except the owner has given us his house and adopted us as children, and he is there to teach us to care for the house. I know it's a strange analogy, but that's somewhat how it is. In the same way, we have immense control over our life, through our words, our thoughts, our actions, but ultimately we depend on God himself to have the ability to accomplish all these things. You see, the Lord created us to be co-creators with him. He wants us to beautify the world and fill it with his love and grace and glory through us. So when I'm out of inspiration, I'll whisper a prayer to the one who paints the sky each evening with blues and purples and ask him to fire up my imagination. When I'm planning for the future, I'll ask God to guide my hand as I scrawl my goals onto my favorite notebook. When I'm remembering the wonderful memories of the last season, I raise my hands and thank God for giving me that beautiful memory to have and to hold. God is the axle around which life revolves, and as I look back and look ahead, I'll find that God himself unites the two with his presence. He fills my cup to overflowing because he's my shepherd, leading me from season to season. Thought number 4. Host a seasonal break party to celebrate. I know I keep coming back to this, but I love how God gave the children of Israel feasts for different seasons. Purim, Passover, and Pentecost are all in spring, while the Feast of Tabernacles, Yom Kippur, which is the Jewish New Year, and the Day of Atonement are all in fall. The beautiful thing about these feasts is that they're designed to be communal activities, where families and friends come together to celebrate and enjoy and remember. I think part of the beauty of this seasonal break is that it can also be an opportunity to celebrate with others. I am seriously considering hosting a season's end party, either online or in person, as a place to get together with dear friends and play water games for the last time and share some of our favorite summer memories and toast our accomplished goals. You see, we weren't meant to live in isolation. We were made to live in community. We need others. You know, here in Florida, we have a lot of ants. And I mean a lot. One lone ant can very easily be squashed and disposed of. However, if you have an anthill nearby, you'll need to call pest control and get rid of that little community. In the same way, we are often vulnerable and weak without a strong community. We can set up goals, but with no one to keep us accountable or cheer us on, it is easy to become discouraged and tired and feel miserably alone. When you set up these kinds of festivals, so to speak, you feel motivated to accomplish more and celebrate more. You'll look for tiny moments to share about and create a culture of gratitude and beauty. I am honestly so excited to host one of these, which I really hope to do. Also, if you're interested in finding community, I actually have a very exciting project I'm working on, and you can sign up on my waiting list today to get updates about its release. Just click the link in the show notes below to join. I've really been enjoying The Lifegiving Home by Sara and Sally Clarkson, a spectacular mother-daughter duo who wrote on how to create a place of becoming and belonging. They open with a delightful story about their experience with a bed and breakfast that I'll never forget and has honestly defined my view of hospitality. And they continue by sharing how they foster this in their home each month. It's an absolutely delightful read that I highly, highly recommend. Well, friends, I've come to the end of my little ramble on summer's end, and I hope that this has blessed you as much as it's blessed me. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this and can't wait to hear if you decide to incorporate these into your own life. And as always, if you'd like to read a written version of this episode, you can find the transcript on my blog. And you can head over there by going to bio.site/Shira J. Rodriguez. That's bio.site/Shira J. Rodriguez. And honestly, I would love to hear from you guys. You can contact me on the contact page, or you can email me at shirajrodriguez@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and until next week, friends, can't wait to see you then. Yay! You did it! I'm giving you a lovely big virtual hug because you just finished another episode of Her Reading Life podcast. If you'd like to access all the wonderful links I mentioned in this episode, visit my website at bio.site/Shira J. Rodriguez. That's bio.site/Shira J. Rodriguez. There you can access my blog posts, resources, and so much more. Also, check out my Instagram page for more inspirational content and join my email list for insider secrets and exclusive updates on special events. The links are in the description box below. Also, if you could take a minute and leave a review for this podcast, that would be amazing. We're able to reach so many more people because of your reviews and ratings. I can't wait to chat with you next time, friends. Keep living, giving, and repeating.